On September 11th, 2001, it's a day that we all remember. Today I will interview my dad, my mom, and my brother on what they were doing on the day of September 11th. So up first, I will interview my dad. What time was it when you first found out the planes had crashed into the World Trade Center?
First time I discovered the World Trade Center was on fire is I had turned the channel to Good Morning America it was a little past 9 o'clock. And I just thought it wasn't real. I didn't think it was a real thing. I was surprised. I had no idea that an airplane had hit the building. I just had heard what that there was smoke and it was on fire. And then I had remembered I called your mother at her work, and she had no idea that this was going on. And so then they had to turn their television on to see what was going on as well.
Where were you, and what was your first reaction to finding out that we were under attack?
I was at home, and my first reaction was, I think, probably helplessness. I felt like, that I wish there was something more I could do, to help, but I just, the helpless feeling of being here alone, and just not being able to help anyone. And I think then I also had the fear, the fear for my children, so, and their future.
Where were Nick and I when the U.S. was under attack?
Nick was attending school at Sacred Heart. I believe he was in first grade. And Anna, you were in bed sleeping.
What time was it when you first found out the planes had crashed into the World Trade Center?
It was about 9 o'clock, maybe about 9:05, when your dad called me and told me that the World Trade Center had an airplane crash into it and was on fire.
Where were you, and what was your first reaction to finding out that we were under attack?
I was in the library at Hawkeye Community College when my husband called and said that the World Trade Center had been hit by airplanes. And I was just in total shock and pure sadness for what was happening to our country, that someone or something had done such a terrible thing. I liken it to the Challenger explosion. It's when that went up and exploded, I was at work, and just the shock and the sadness, and no explanation of why or how or what had happened. And it was just a really shocking thing that we'll never forget.
What was the days that followed like, and do you remember anything else about that day?
I remember on the day, September 11th, 2001, I remember the days that followed, there was no air traffic. And often you look up in the sky and you see jets flying, and it was just really eerie that there was no jets in the sky except over near where this happened. The military jets and the government jets were flying, but nothing was flying anywhere else in the United States, and I had never experienced anything like that, and I hope to never experience that again.
What time was it when you first found out the planes had crashed into the World Trade Center?
What time was it when I found out the World Trade Center was hit by a plane? Well, it was about 3:30 when I got home from school. My dad picked me up, and it was on television. I do remember hearing something about it in my class, and I got home and I saw on television my dad was watching like CNN or something, and I looked and I thought, is this a movie? What's going on? I didn't think it was real life. But yeah, 9/11, it was a bad time.
And how old were you?
I was 7 years old. I was in first grade. I remember sitting in my first grade classroom, which is now Mrs. McLean's classroom at Sacred Heart. I was sitting in Mrs. Claybaugh, now Miss Weber, who works over at Blessed Maria. I remember being in her class, and she was told by the principal that the plane had hit the World Trade Center. We didn't find out because they didn't want to alarm us, and we just kept playing like first graders would normally would, and we just we kept on. We didn't know until we got home, and there were people that left early that day and never knew the wiser. We weren't the wiser, so.
And do you wish your dad would have took you out of school that day?
I really don't think so, because I mean, if he would have taken me out of school, I would have known a lot sooner. It was basically, he kept me in school because he thought I would be safe there. And he didn't want to go out because he wanted to keep track of the story and what was going on. So, I mean, it's not like I missed out on a whole bunch of stuff. Everything, all the same stuff happened that I saw later in that evening. So, I mean, do I wish he took me out? No.
So now that you're 18, how do you feel about living through one of the most remembered moments in U.S. history and being so young?
Well, I remember it. I'm always going to remember it. Even though I was 7 when it happened, I'll remember it for the rest of my life. It's just like when Pearl Harbor happened way back in 1941. People remember that. They still remember that, even though most of them are in their 70s now. But everybody will remember 9/11. 9/11 will go down in it's the day of infamy, basically, like how Pearl Harbor was. That was the day that we started our war with Afghanistan in 2003 because of Al-Qaeda and what they do, and it also started the Iraq War because the Saddam Hussein said that he had weapons of mass destruction and they were giving them to Al-Qaeda if we didn't follow demands. So basically 9/11 was one of the worst terrorist attacks in the United States history, aside from Pearl Harbor and a few other ones.
So I'm Anna Cutsforth, and this was the end of my
I'm Anna Cutsforth, and I approve this message.